Yo, so more kind of reactionary content or whatever, I suppose. Um, let's just make sure this is all fine. Yeah, looks good. Okay, yeah. So there's something new come out in AOS. It's the return of the king or the prince, I suppose. Legion of the First Prince is back. Obviously, that's for if you're somebody who likes demons, and I really like demons. That's kind of big. Really glad to see this army back and not the kind of shell of its former self that it was in the last book. However, I have some mixed opinions on this, so we're going to be looking through the rules. I'm going to kind of just give a rundown. I played a game so far of Legion of the First Prince. I managed to beat Stormcast Palador spam, which is a very good list, but it was a good battle plan for me. It was Feral Foray. Excuse me. And I don't know, there's some stuff I'm not so sure about with this army. You might notice that there's only 3 of the gods open here. That's not an accident. Sorry, Slanesh, but for some reason they decided to give us terrible Slanesh models. So all I actually have to go off of is this, but I've heard from some reliable sources that I'm not going to put in a YouTube video that what the other rules are. So I'm told. Anyway, so let's talk about what you're allowed. So over here, this is all the slave stuff, which you can read, and the demons that you're allowed are blood letters and blood crushers, which are the juggernaut cavalry. They're terrible. Then you're also allowed flamers and screamers. You're allowed plague bearers and beasts of Nurgle, and then you're allowed hell flayers and fiends of Slash. So I'm just going to kind of cut to the chase a little bit. This is the best rule in the faction, demonic reinforcements. Right? This is absolutely crazy. So you'll notice here, right, so first of all, because people have been... I've seen some people doing this ironically, and some people doing it seriously. This clearly means non-hero Legion of the First Prince Demon Infantry, or non-hero Legion of the First Prince Demon Cavalry. If somebody says, would you like a hot tea or coffee? You would not expect the coffee to be cold. That's just how English works. Just gonna throw that out there real quick. So I'm not humouring anybody who's talking about recurring Varangard. Just from the off. But basically, some of these demon units that you can take are not infantry or cavalry. So that would be Screamers, Beasts of Nurgle, and Fiends are all beasts. So they're in the bin, basically, because you can't recur them. Why this doesn't say beast, I don't know. Oh, also I think the Hellflayer. Oh my god, I can't believe. Are we actually going to have to open... I think we are actually going to have to open the Slanesh, just because I need to know what a Hellflayer is. Where is the stupid thing? Here it is. It is a... Yeah, I thought it would be a war machine. It is a war machine. So no Hellflayer recursion either. Not that you would want to take this, even if you could recur it. So that does some interesting things to the army. Basically, it means that, you're kind of highly incentivized, I think, to just take demons. You don't get any of the benefits of being enslaved, so you don't get your pledges, and you don't get kind of any of your battle traits or anything like that. No Eye of the Gods or anything. Because you're in this sub-faction, you don't get your banners and all that jazz. So that means that demons are just kind of de facto by far the best thing to be doing. And there are some problems with that. One of them is that none of the demons actually hit very hard. I've played my one game with this list, and much like my experiences with them in Khorne, Bloodletters get absolutely crushed by the Bodyguard rule. Bodyguard is by far the best honor guard, I think, in the meta at the moment. It's not even really close. It's kind of meta warping, honestly, and 2-attack infantry, it's so frustrating because, if you're a 4-attack model, then Bodyguard is like a 25% damage reduction. If you're a 2-attack model, it's a 50% damage reduction. It's literally twice as effective, and it cuts the damage output of a unit of Bloodletters in half. I think that's a massive problem that this army actually has at the moment. Be'lakor is quite good at applying Bodyguard, especially in this army, because he is incredibly tanky. He gets a 4-up Egomaniac save, basically. Which, it's really powerful. you can't like take the wards off the path up or anything, but it is still really really strong. You have like plague bearers, which are just cheap wounds to chuck them into and stuff. Like a blob of 20 plague bearers or whatever is good. So yeah, basically we can rule out beasts. Then looking at the models that we can take, so the ones of interest, flamers. These guys have been changed. So from my fairly trusted source, but could be wrong. Apparently they have a once per army ability, which adds 1 to the wound rolls when you're targeting a specific unit, because burning doesn't exist in this army. And also, after they deal damage to you, you take D3 mortal wounds, which makes them decent, but they're still... Flamers still have all the same problems that they have in Tzeentch, which is that they are quite slow for a shooting unit in terms of like their threat range. Their threat range isn't very far. They have flight, which means that they can't benefit from forests or obscuring, and as a result they tend to lose any kind of shooting mirror match on the table. When I was playing Lumineth a lot, for example, and I was playing against Tzeentch, Flamers were always priority number 1 because they can't hide and they're very squishy. So I think it's something of a liability, and I think that this army actually probably has a place in being an incredible army against shooting, because you can take a lot of cheap wounds with recursion. So Flamers, I think I could see a unit, maybe 2 units just running around. They recur quite well. You know, you get 2 back out of your 3, that's kind of nice. They can shoot when they come back, which is also quite nice. You know, they can impact the game immediately on returning, instead of having to roll an 8 or a 9. So that's pretty good. But otherwise, And in Khorne, sadly we don't get Bloodthirsters. God, if we got the Unfettered Fury in that army. Oi, oi, oi. Although I guess it wouldn't be that good because it doesn't come back. The one that I'm interested in, so we get Blood Crushers. These kind of just suck. Why do they not have +1 damage on their scroll? It's dependent on taking the Herald. Anyway, Blood Crusher's not it. Bloodletters are alright. So this army has a +1 save mechanic that you can give to a demon unit. The +5 control score, by the way, is actually really relevant too. In my game, I had 2 turns where like a single demon dude from an infantry unit that survived or whatever was able to take a point away from Krondys. Like, it's actually pretty impactful. This bestow favor rule, this is powerful. But it also gives +1 save, and Bloodletters have a 5-up save, so they go to a 4-up, and 4-up if you all at defense, going to Ignoring Rend 1. And these guys don't mind not all out attacking, because to be honest, a lot of their damage comes from the crit mortal anyway. You know, it's not that big a deal if they can't get +1 to hit. 4-up save, Ignoring Rend 1, 6-up ward, and you get D3 even back at the end of every combat. This unit is actually like legitimately quite difficult to shift. The problems that they have is they're slow. You do have a spell, boost them D6. I guess I'm feeling kind of like I wanted to just give a brief overview of the units that we get first, but I am somewhat torn now, feeling like I should have gone through what you actually get in this army first, but we'll persevere. So this unit is surprisingly tanky, and they do brawl quite well. You know, they'll sit and have like a kind of extended combat reasonably well. However, and if you have a 20-man unit, recurring 10 Bloodletters is okay, but recurring 5 Bloodletters is pathetic. This rule may as well not exist in a unit of 5 Bloodletters. It's really bad. So that's not so good. I think part of the problem that these guys have is Bodyguard being in the meta and Plague Bearers. So Plague Bearers are probably around here somewhere. That's Sloppity. Okay, maybe we go down. Plague Bearers. So these folks are +1 ward save. They have a 5-up ward. They only have a 6-up save, so they don't take the +1 save as well. Although 5-up on a blob of 40 wounds is still perfectly respectable. Minus 1 to be hit by shooting, super relevant in the current meta. Glad to have that. So these guys are like kind of... I think you probably are going to end up playing a mix of Bloodletters and Plague Bearers. I think that these are by far the best thing. Like, if you need to seize the center, sending like a big blob of 20 Plague Bearers and then some other unit just within 3 behind them and stuff like that, completely reasonable. These guys are great little, not literally bodyguards, because keeping a whole unit of 20 wholly within 6 of Be'lakor is a nightmare, but they're good for this rule here, which is basically if you've got them within 3 of Be'lakor, he has a 4-up ward and you can shrug over to them. That's nice. Obviously they come back reasonably well, and even bringing back a unit of 5 Bloodletters just to be more ablative wounds for Be'lakor is completely fine, I think. Be'lakor's a bit of a badass in this army. He runs around, he's very tanky. It's powerful, so I think Bloodletters and Plague Bearers are the ones that are going to kind of do the most of the heavy lifting there, and also a shout out to Furies, which are in here somewhere. These are also infantry, so you can bring these back too. I think that means that these win out over Screamers, because I did have some people saying that, like, oh, well, the wound density of the units is the same, and it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of true, but just having access to, like, if I attack a unit of Screamers with, like, I don't know, something that's going to kill a unit of Screamers, it's also going to kill a unit of Furies. I think it's very rare that your Screamer's going to get attacked by something that wouldn't, or sorry, I think it's rare that something's going to kill a unit of Furies that wouldn't also kill a unit of Screamers. I think on the recurred unit, it's probably a bit more true. Like the recurred unit of 3 Furies, that can die to like D3 mortals and stuff, that can happen. But you wouldn't have had a recurred unit of Screamers. So, I don't know, I don't think I buy that argument. And being able to bring back, something that I found playing the army is that the Holy Within 12 of Be'lakor is actually quite restrictive. Having small units to be able to bring back Holy Within 12 is actually pretty nice, because they can squeeze into some kind of tight gaps, and that can matter. And you can do some kind of fancy stuff with this unit when they do come back. You know, if you can get them near some terrain and stuff like that, they can charge the terrain and then use sneaky little devils, and they can move pretty far. So I'm actually really quite a fan of this unit when they're coming back. Okay, so that's kind of like our. Otherwise, we've got this. One thing I think also that's probably worth talking about is, and this is actually a bit of a disaster, I think this army should have something in here that says, like, Turnus and the Sorcerer Lord are allowed to take, like, a demon unit or something. Unless there's something that I don't understand in, like, Red or Armies of Renown. I don't, like, reading this box here, as far as I understand, there's no exceptions. But basically, if you take a Turnus or a Sorcerer Lord, they are not able to take the demons. Eternus, I think, can take a unit of Furies. I can take any number of Furies. And then the Sorcerer Lord can't take anything other than Varangard, which seems prohibitive. The Demon Prince and Be'lakor can take anything. But yeah, the restrictions on Eternus and the Sorcerer Lord's regiments is a bit weird. The Centaurian Marshal can also take any demon, which is nice. But can't take Varangard, so there is a bit of like a, I don't know, I feel like for an Army of Renown it would have been completely fine to just be like, look, you've got a really restricted unit pool anyway, anything can just take anything. Just go crazy. So, not 100% sure how I feel about that, but yeah. Okay, so let's actually talk about what this army does. So Be'lakor gets a 4 of Egomaniac, like I mentioned. That makes him really, really tanky, and it means that you can kind of be a bit braver with him in the early game. I will say in my game against Stormcast, I was probably too brave with him in the early game. He didn't die, but the entire game basically revolved around the Stormcast player then trying to kill Be'lakor because I'd overextended him, and me trying to save Be'lakor because I'd overextended him, and that turned the game into something that was very dicey rather than positioning reliant, and I didn't really like that. So he is the absolute linchpin of the army, and you do need to keep him safe, but he, at a 4-up, your opponent is basically just like, you have to cause a lot of damage to him. It's whatever 14 times 4 is. Like 64, a little less than that because multi-damage attacks exist and stuff, but obviously he's kind of a swingy model, and he's immune to rend, which is really, really nice. Wounds on Be'lakor with a 4-up ward matter a lot, and I think that makes rallying him very powerful. It also makes Emerald Lifeswarm very powerful in this army, because you cannot have Be'lakor die, because the entire House of Cards falls to pieces if you do, because Demonic Reinforcements is Holy Within 12 of Be'lakor. Now this is in your movement phase, which means that Be'lakor can like move and drop a unit off, or he can drop a unit off and then move. He can retreat and then drop units off and stuff like that. It's powerful. You know, you can charge him and drop a unit kind of almost behind or to the side of enemy things, and then power through back to kind of your own side of the table and so on. This is a good rule, but it is restrictive. At first I thought this was going to be something like Soulblight or Feck. It's not. It's considerably more restrictive than that, and I think it means that the army's going to end up playing a bit more in a kind of Deathball Castle Blob thing, rather than the really spread out KG Soulblight style game I thought it was originally going to play. Storm of Blackened Blades is a nice bonus if you have a Turnus in your army. Basically it means that taking a Turnus means that you can buff Varangard. Kinda cool. I feel like though if you're putting Varangard in your army, you are also struggling to fit a Turnus, but maybe with more experimentation there is something here. It's also non-hero, which I think is a bit. I would have been fine with non-hero, non-demon. Would it really be so bad if if Eternus is out here buffing the Centaurian Marshal? I don't quite understand that. Speaking of the Centaurian Marshal, his so I don't have the new Slaves book. Unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with my poverty case rules access. But the Centaurian Marshal, wherever he is, God, there's so many scrolls and slaves. Has been changed to let his fight ability affect demons, and they get +1 to hit when he chains them, which is actually quite nice in this army. So this is now pick up. Basically, I think I don't know what it is, but it's demons can get it. Excuse me, and then you can chain them and they get +1 to hit, which is nice. It is non-hero still though, so you can't chain Bellicor with it, which I definitely did in my practice game because I didn't realize. And whoops, but being able to chain like a unit of 20 Bloodletters or something off of that guy is nice. I do wonder if he's maybe just too expensive, but also he's maybe he's 10 wins, man. Come on. I guess he's cavalry anyway. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, it would be nice if there was a way that you could get the hero trait and artifact into the army without having to take these kind of weird models. And the Sorcerer Lord, like I said, has restrictions with the units that he can take. But still favor 6 up ward on Varangard is kind of nice, but I feel like if you're taking Varangard, you're surely taking a Sorcerer Lord to try and fish for the 5 up ward. But it's not a bad backup. If you don't get it, you can give them the 6 up ward anyway. And like I said, genuinely the +5 to control score comes up. It's powerful. This ability doesn't have range either. It's yet another reason that you need to keep Bellicor alive. Being able to put Bloodletters to a 4-up save is actually pretty relevant too. So yeah, I think that this is all in all, these 3 rules are powerful, and then this one is situational. But if you play Eternus, it's okay. It means Eternus gets 7 attacks at least on like his go turn where he charges, which is cute more than anything, I suppose. So let's just look at the other things. So this here, why this isn't just friendly units older than 12 get +1 to charge, I do not know. Like, this is such a weird stipulation to have here. Just how often is it? Like in my game, certainly because I was paying attention to it. This never affected more than 3 units. It rarely affected more than 2 units. I don't understand this at all. But it is any charge phase, which is nice, which means that you get it. And counter charge, that actually came up in our game. Bellicor rolled I think it was an 8, which turned into a 9, which let him one of those things where it was like, he needs like a 5 to get in. But then he rolled a high number and he was able to land on the other side of something. It's kind of nice. Then this is just reroll casting. I think Bellicor's War Scroll spell is obviously very powerful. Shroud in Darkness is a good spell too. This is actual visibility, so it means that you can't get hit by spells. Being able to not be targeted by things like what's the roll called? Arcane Suggestion. Really, really strong. Loads of random stuff in the game actually kind of requires visibility now. So Shroud in Darkness is quite good. But I think maybe requires a bit of kind of weird play. The D6 move is nice but unreliable. Obviously it is quite good that it's in the hero phase, but it's you need to cast it and it's D6. You can take the terrain piece for +1 to cast, so you have +1 to cast with a reroll, which is good. It's definitely good, but still it's kind of annoying to take that terrain piece. You don't want to shackle Bellicor to it. If you take a sorcerer, you're probably taking Varangard, blah 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 blah. I think it's quite cool with Varangard, but 12 inches is not quite long enough, I think, against most armies. I think if this was 9, it would be incredibly powerful, but at 12, I think it's quite playable around. The boogeymen de jour at the moment, I think, are rattling guns and long strikes. Both of them have ways to kind of get inside of 12, but it does make redeployment quite strong. And there is a bit of a weird kind of thing here, though, where it's not visible to enemy units that are more than 12 inches away. So unlike kind of normal visibility in this game, it's not done model by model. So if they can get one model within 12, then the whole unit can see, which is not how it normally works. It's how obscuring works, just for people who are maybe going to type in the comments. That is how obscuring works, but obscuring actually doesn't block your line of sight. It just means that you're not eligible to be targeted by ranged attacks. So, Manifestation Lords, I actually asked Madigan about this. And Madigan, I was like, why have they done this? Because as far as I can tell, there's nothing in Armies of Renown that stop you from taking the general lores, and Madigan was like, yep, that's right. So I think in this army you probably want either Bridge to move your stuff around, because when you have so many recurred units that are kind of small and rubbish, being able to just kind of yeet them across the board I think is really valuable. It means that you can play the spread out game really, really well. And if you're not taking Forbidden Power, then I think I would probably take Primal for, as I mentioned, Bellacor's wounds are really, really important. Having Emerald Lightsworn for Bellacor I think is really, really good. So, there's some kind of choices there. In general, I think that this is going to be a strong army, but I think that the strength of this army is 100% going to come from demonic reinforcements. I do think that there's maybe going to be a build where it's like 40 or 50 Plague Bearers or something, and then Bellacord a unit of Iron Guard. And that's probably quite good too. But I don't want to start there. I want to experiment with demons because demons are cool. I like mixed demons. That's an army I've wanted for forever. When I first got into the game, I was actually going to get Legion of the First Prince, and then people were like, don't. It's really OP, it's going to get nerfed, and then apparently it's getting removed from the game. And it turns out that they were right, so... yeah. Anyway, I think this is a good army. Some lists that I've been kind of messing around with are basically like Be'lakor and Eternus, and then you fill their regiments, or Be'lakor and a Centaurian Marshal, and then you fill their regiments just with like demons and other kind of garbage. I think that my current thing to test is probably 40 Bloodletters, because the theory is that they can only throw their bodyguard at one of the units, and then the other one gets to have fun. And the unit that is getting bodyguarded can be miserable and act like a little bit of a tar pit and then get recurred. And maybe it won't be so bad. And otherwise you just have like Plague Bearers and Furies and Flamers and stuff running around the table, and have Be'lakor just kind of being a bit of an unkillable nightmare for most armies. I think that there's very few things in the game that Be'lakor actually has to be afraid of and respect. It's like getting charged by Kragnos, Hand of Dust. That's kind of it. Otherwise, he's quite good at just kind of running around the table, bringing stuff back, charging and kind of fighting things, being kind of in somewhat extended combats. His Rampage is obviously very, very powerful as well, which is something that kind of exists always in this army. And obviously the army is like quite good against Mega Hammers because you can turn them off with Be'lakor. So also I think the army is very good at playing around turn control, because again, Be'lakor, he's just a model that, if you have turn control, you can really kind of mess with people with Be'lakor. You can use him to deny tactics and stuff. Like, it's strong. I think it's powerful. So yeah, I think this is going to be a good army. I'm not convinced it's going to be S tier. I know that the hot take factory over at what's it called, Iron Gutsman's channel or whatnot, put Slaves in S tier, which I think is optimistic. And we'll see how the new book shakes out. To me, Slaves kind of look worse in the new book, but I think that this rule might bring something to teams. I don't know. We'll see. This is certainly, there's a lot of shooting kind of ruining the meta at the moment, and I think that this is a rule that is very good against shooting, and it helps that Be'lakor is a model who will survive long strikes. However, I think he does not survive rattling guns, because that might just actually be too many dice. Force him to just take like 80 armor saves to get all, to shoot him with like 2 turns of rattling guns or whatever. That's maybe just too much. I don't know, we'll see. So, just some kind of initial thoughts on Legion of the First Prince. If anybody's been playing it, like, let me know, comment and stuff, because I'm super interested. I think this is an army for people who, like demons. Obviously it's a bit more kind of flavorful, but I think that, there's some real chops here. It may be a little bit boring to play. You're basically just kind of like moving your models around, and you don't have that many interesting cool rules, other than coming back. But I certainly enjoyed playing it, and I would say it's probably got more going on than a lot of Slaves armies have had, kind of so far. So yeah, I guess let me know. I'll probably, when I get my hands on the Slaves rules, I'll probably go through them. But for now, I think Legion of the First Prince, I'm interested. I've been playing Khorne at the moment, but this has definitely got my attention. So thanks very much for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.